Teenagers Sharnelle and Marna have known each other since kindergarten and are inseparable. As best friends, they share everything: their dreams, their fears, and their plans for the future. For years, they have always stood by each other, supporting each other wherever they can and spending every free minute together. They attend boarding school together, and when they're not in class, they make plans for the future. Marna and Sharnelle, who have spent their entire lives together since early childhood, have no idea that they will soon die together. "17-year-old Marna Engelbrecht and 16-year-old Sharnelle Hough have been best friends since kindergarten. They live in Stella, a small community with around 2,000 inhabitants in South Africa. Marna is a hard-working student with good grades who loves animals more than anything else. Her big dream is to become a veterinarian one day. Sharnelle is open and outgoing and known for her cheerful nature. Her mother describes her as someone who always sees the good in others. Marna and Sharnelle have been inseparable for over 10 years and share everything. They even share a room at Stella High School boarding school, where they have been living for some time. During the week, they live in the girls' section of the boarding school and visit their families on weekends. The two girls enjoy their life together. They meet friends, have movie nights, and start to take an interest in boys. But everything changes when Sharnelle gets together with Xander Bylsma, a distant cousin of Marna's. Xander is 19 years old and is described by most as a nice, polite young man. He is tall, has dark hair and green eyes. His parents love him very much and do everything for their only child. His mother in particular tends to spoil him. After his parents' divorce, Xander lives alternately with his mother and father on 2 farms near Stella. He also attends Stella High School, where he plays rugby until he is suspended in 2017 after secretly sneaking into the girls' boarding school. After his suspension, he leaves school, but he and Sharnelle continue their relationship. What initially seems harmonious quickly develops into a toxic relationship. Xander becomes increasingly possessive and controlling. He constantly wants to know where Sharnelle is, who she's talking to, and what she's wearing. If she does not respond or does not do what Xander wants, he reacts angrily. While Sharnelle's family is unaware of this, her friends repeatedly advise her to end the relationship. Sharnelle does so several times, but Xander threatens her and forces her to continue the relationship each time. In May 2018, she decides to break up with him for good. She meets Brandon Victor, another student at Stella High School, and starts spending more and more time with him. This ultimately gives her the strength to end her relationship with Xander. But he responds with more threats, not only against Sharnelle, but also against her best friend Marna and Brandon. Brandon keeps getting calls from Xander threatening him and trying to force him to break up with Sharnelle. But Brandon is not impressed. Marna supports Sharnelle in her decision to break up and tells her to ignore the intimidation attempts. But this only fuels Xander's growing anger. In the past, he has often lost his temper and threatened people or behaved unpredictably. But so far, he has never acted on his threats. No one suspects that this is about to change. Xander is downright obsessed with Sharnelle. He mentions to his friends that he thinks it's unfair that she has already moved on, while he himself is unable to do so. Xander and Sharnelle originally met through their mutual friend Anastasia Pfizer. Xander and Sharnelle met at a fishing competition in 2015 and stayed in touch for a while via Facebook and WhatsApp. When Xander contacted her again in February 2018, Sharnelle had confided in her a few days earlier and told her how possessive Xander had been in their relationship. She told her that she couldn't take the emotional abuse anymore, but that she was afraid Xander might hurt her. On May 28, 2018, Xander calls Anastasia. During the phone call, he claims that Sharnelle had sent nude photos to her new boyfriend Brandon while they were still together. At the end of the conversation, he says that he wants to torment and harass Sharnelle until she takes her own life. After that, he says he wants to drive to Sharnelle's father's house, show him the photos, and tell him that he is responsible for his daughter's death. Anastasia is shocked, but she does not react as one might expect. She does not try to talk Xander out of it. She doesn't call the police either. Instead, she says that her favorite TV show is on so she can end the conversation quickly. On Friday, May 25th, 2018, a stressful school week comes to an end, and almost all the girls from the boarding school go home for the weekend. Except for Sharnelle and Marna. The two are staying because they want to attend the boys' rugby game in Costa the next day to support Sharnelle's boyfriend, Brandon. Apart from one supervisor, they are all alone in the girls' wing of the boarding school that weekend. The supervisor is normally responsible for locking up the wing in the evening. But on this particular evening, she leaves the door unlocked because Marna and Sharnelle have told her that a relative is coming by to bring them some clean clothes. They promise to wake the supervisor as soon as he arrives so she can lock the doors. The supervisor goes to bed in her room on the ground floor at around 10 p.m. and falls asleep, unaware that no one will wake her later. Marna and Sharnelle use the excuse of the relative who wants to come by as a pretext. In reality, they have left the doors open so that Brandon can sneak out of the boys' wing and join them. At around 11:15 p.m., he sneaks over to the girls and the three spend almost 2 hours together, drinking coffee and talking. It's a peaceful, relaxed evening. But at around 1 a.m., Sharnelle's phone rings. It's Xander. Sharnelle puts the call on speaker so that Marna and Brandon can hear. At first, Xander seems calm and polite. But when Sharnelle refuses to let him come over, his mood changes. He gets angry, insults her, and accuses her of being a bad person. Then he says, "I hope you're happy with what I'm going to do tonight," and hangs up. Brandon is worried. He offers to stay in Sharnelle's room for the night to protect her, but she refuses. She doesn't want him to get in trouble with the school if he gets caught. Brandon suggests that Sharnelle could sleep in his room in the boys' wing while he stays in hers. But she doesn't want to risk that either. A decision that, in retrospect, may have saved Brandon's life. Soon after, he goes back to his own room. There, he thinks about what Xander's statement might mean. Does he mean that he wants to hurt himself? Or is it an attempt to force Sharnelle to feel sorry for him and give him attention? Brandon doesn't know, but the words won't leave him. He calls Sharnelle to make sure she's okay. She reassures him and they hang up. It's the last time he'll ever speak to her. On May 26th, at around 5:30 a.m., the caregiver goes upstairs to check on Sharnelle and Marna. She is concerned because the two did not wake her up as agreed. But when she reaches the bottom of the stairs, she freezes. Sharnelle is hanging from the stair railing with a rope around her neck. She is dead. The caregiver immediately alerts the caretaker. When he sees the scene, he immediately runs into the girls' room and discovers Marna in the bathroom. She's lying dead on the floor with a strap, apparently from a backpack, around her neck. Around 6 a.m., Sharnelle's father, Ronnie, wakes up. When he looks at his cell phone, he sees 2 WhatsApp messages sent from Sharnelle's number. But when he reads them, he immediately realizes that his daughter couldn't have written them herself. One of the messages contains a picture of Sharnelle wearing only a bra. The second message reads, "Daddy, I'm sorry, Marna and I are leaving this place." Ronnie is certain that Sharnelle would never send him such a picture. The message doesn't sound like her either. He immediately calls her and Marna, but no one answers. Worried, he contacts the school principal, who finally breaks the devastating news to him. His daughter and her best friend are dead, allegedly by suicide. Ronnie can't believe it. He knows his daughter and Marna well. They are full of life and energy and have shown no signs of mental health issues. He spoke to them the night before. They were laughing and having a good time. He immediately knows that something is wrong. He calls his brother Louis and asks him to drive to the school as he lives nearby. At the same time, he informs Marna's father, Stefan, who also sets off. When Ronnie arrives at the school, his brother Louis is already there. The police are also on the scene but have left the crime scene untouched to secure evidence. Sharnelle is still hanging from the stairs and Marna is lying in the bathroom. Ronnie is stunned and beside himself with rage that his daughter is still hanging there. In his desperation, he tries to attack the officers, but Louis holds him back. Finally, the two are allowed to go to Sharnelle. Ronnie takes his daughter in his arms while Louis cuts the rope with a pocket knife. Later, Louis recalls this moment and says, "I don't know how long Ronnie just sat there with her head on his lap, stroking her back and feet. Then I said to him, 'Brother, she's gone. You have to stop now.' But he kept holding her hand and said, 'Can you feel that? She's still warm. Jesus, help me.'" When Marna's father arrives at Stefan's house, the bathroom is already locked. He's not allowed to see his daughter, but from a distance he can see her lying lifeless on the floor. While Sharnelle's body is still warm, Marna is already ice cold. Investigators later conclude that Marna died first, but neither girl has been dead long. Stephen is stunned. He leaves the boarding school completely distraught. Later he says, "It felt so surreal. I was angry, and I still am. Something like this shouldn't happen. Parents shouldn't lose their children. She was safe with me, but I guess that was just beyond my control." Driven by anger, Stefans gets into his truck and drives to Xander's house. He is convinced that Xander had something to do with the girls' deaths. For Stefan, there is no doubt. Xander didn't just want Sharnelle to kill herself, he wanted to kill her and Marna. He wanted it to look like a double suicide. The officers also quickly determined that the girls' deaths cannot have been suicides. The evidence clearly points to foul play. The chairman of the school board, Richard Hobson, calls an experienced private detective, Chris Saunders. Chris arrives at the scene in the afternoon. The girls' bodies are now covered with white sheets. After an initial inspection of the crime scene and interviews with witnesses, he concludes that the situation is too unclear and that Xander must be questioned immediately. Chris then drives to Xander's father Monty's farm and finds himself in the middle of a threatening situation. Marnie's father, Stefan, threatens Xander with a gun. Chris finally manages to de-escalate the situation and convince Stefan to take Xander to the police station. They have to drive 80 kilometers to get there, and Chris uses the opportunity to carefully question Xander. He records the conversation. At first, Xander gives only brief answers and says he doesn't know what happened. But Chris remains patient and even buys him cigarettes to get him to talk. Finally, Xander begins to tell his story. He admits that he was in a bar on the night of the incident. Later, he drove to the girls' dormitory to talk to Sharnelle. He wanted to apologize and win her back. According to Xander, Sharnelle came towards him on the stairs. They talked and even kissed. But she didn't want to make up with him and went back to her room. At the same time, Marna was on her way to the bathroom. He confesses that he followed her and tried to suffocate her. When she fought back, he strangled her with the strap of a handbag. He then took a jump rope he found under the stairs and went to Sharnelle, surprising her from behind. He strangled her until she was unconscious and assumed she was dead. He then lifted her body over the railing on the second floor and tied the rope there to make it look like suicide. The autopsy results later show that Sharnelle was still alive at the time and only suffocated later, which is why her body was still warm when it was found. After the crime, Xander sent the messages to Sharnelle's father and drove to his mother's house, where he spent the night and drove to his father's house the next morning. When asked about a motive, Xander cites jealousy and anger. He wanted Sharnelle back, but she had already broken up with him. Marna had to die because she would have supported Sharnelle and called the police. Since only Xander, Marna, and Sharnelle were present at the time of the crime, the account of events is based solely on Xander's statement. Although he sticks to his story, Chris suspects that some details are not true. A tuft of Marna's hair was found in the hallway, which leads him to believe that there was a struggle and that Marna tried to flee to the bathroom. After his initial confession in the car, Xander repeats his story twice to the police. His written statement is 7 pages long. He waives his right to a lawyer and remains calm and cool. The autopsies confirm that neither Marna nor Sharnelle committed suicide. Both girls have numerous injuries, including blunt head injuries. Xander must await trial in custody. But over the next few days, he comes up with a plan to avoid conviction. At first, Xander claims that he does not want to apply for bail because he fears for his own safety. In South Africa, there is a magazine called You that has covered this case in detail. According to their reports, reporters spoke with residents of the city, some of whom openly said that they would kill Xander if they saw him. That is why he does not want to apply for bail at first. However, he eventually changes his mind. But letters he writes to his mother from prison reveal the real reason for his decision. He has made friends with other prisoners behind bars, one of whom later tells the police that Xander confessed to him that he murdered the 2 girls. Xander also said that he had to find a way out of this situation because he regretted his confessions. He realizes that he has revealed everything in his statements and is considering how he can undo this. Another prisoner advises him to get a certain judge for his case, who is allegedly corrupt and could decide in his favor in exchange for payment. Xander writes to his parents and asks them to raise the money necessary to bribe the judge and get him bail. His plan is to flee to Botswana after his release. He promises his parents that he will contact them in 5 years to let them know that he is well. But Xander's plan does not work. His letters are intercepted and read. Due to the escape plans revealed in them, he is now considered a flight risk and is denied bail. A psychologist examines Xander and finds that although he is impulsive, aggressive, and has had temperamental problems since childhood, he does not have a mental illness. Xander exhibits paranoid behavior, often sees himself as a victim, blames others for his problems, and acts impulsively, especially when jealous. Nevertheless, according to the psychologist, he is capable of logical thinking. When the trial begins, Xander is 22 years old. In court, he suddenly changes all his statements. He now claims that on the evening Sharnelle and Marna were killed, he met Sharnelle. The conversation went well, and Sharnelle told him that she wanted to be with him. Xander suggested talking to Brandon to clear everything up. After that, he and Sharnelle had sex in his car before saying goodbye, and Sharnelle went back to her room. This was the last time he saw her. Xander claims that his original confession was made under duress and threat. The police and private investigator Chris Saunders took advantage of his condition. According to his version, after meeting Sharnelle, he drove to his mother's house, smoked a cigarette in front of the gate, and went to sleep. The next morning, while driving to his father's house, he received a call informing him that Sharnelle had committed suicide. The call upset him so much that he took 10 tranquilizers. Xander explains that he was under the influence of these substances. He therefore only said what the investigators wanted to hear in order to escape the constant questions and threats. When Xander is asked why he repeated his original version 3 times, twice on the first day and once on the second day, he claims he did so out of fear. However, the recordings of his confessions are played in court to prove that Xander was of sound mind. There are no signs of threats or pressure from the investigators. The recordings show that Xander speaks calmly and coherently and knows what he is saying. At first, the parents of the victims and Xander's parents support each other, but as the trial progresses, they fall out. Sharnelle's father, Ronnie, nevertheless declares that he does not blame Xander's parents and even feels sorry for them, as they have to live with the uncertainty about their son's future. Monty, Xander's father, sells his house and farm to finance his son's defense. However, he also threatens the prosecution and physically attacks those involved in the trial. Judge Ronald Hendricks ultimately sentences Xander to 2 life sentences, emphasizing in his reasoning the particular severity of the crimes, especially the fact that the victims were young women. He stresses that gender-based violence is a major problem in South Africa and explains that harsh penalties are necessary to send a clear message. The judge rejects the defense's argument that Xander's age, inexperience, and emotional immaturity are mitigating circumstances. After the conviction, Xander's parents continue to claim that their son is innocent and try to shift the blame to Brandon, Sharnelle's boyfriend at the time. Xander's mother, Marcia, says that despite the conviction, she stands by her son and is not ashamed of him. "He's my child. God gave him to me." People look at me strangely when I say that, but I won't change my mind because I'm not ashamed of my child. Of course, we made mistakes, but we also did our best. The person described in this court is not my child. It can't be him. We now want to see the real perpetrator in court, and we also want the murder to be solved. The victim's parents are deeply affected. Sharnelle's mother, Sonia, explains that she hates Xander for what he did, but does not feel any anger that would drive her to seek revenge. The loss of her daughter has left her emotionally numb. She says, "I will always hate him. I don't care about life anymore. I don't feel anything anymore because all I cared about was my child. And now she's gone. It has turned me into a terrible person who doesn't care about anyone else." In 2021, the case will be featured in a documentary by director David Enright entitled Stella Murders. The film will also address the high rate of crime against women in South Africa. David says, "We hope that this documentary will not only highlight some of the warning signs to look out for, but also become part of the nationwide discussion about the shameful extent of violence against women in South Africa." The case is repeatedly mentioned in connection with the high number of crimes against women in South Africa. Gender-based violence, and femicide in particular, are still very widespread there. It is estimated that every 4 hours, a woman is murdered by a man in South Africa, mostly by her partner or ex-partner. The government has begun to impose harsher penalties to curb this violence. Xander is attempting to appeal his sentence in 2020. The appeal will be rejected in 2021. It is unlikely that he will ever be released from prison. And that brings us to the end of today's video. What is your opinion on the case and the verdict? Feel free to write your thoughts in the comments. By doing so, you will also be supporting this channel. If a video receives a lot of interaction shortly after being uploaded, it is more likely to be recommended to people who have not yet subscribed to Insolito. Thank you in advance. Other than that, there's not much else to say. Have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching this video, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, bye everyone.